The following message is being transmitted at the request of the Office of Civil Defense. This is an emergency broadcast. This is not a test.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to Level 1 Woke Podcast, the first step to waking up. Today is going to be our first episode, and we're going to talk a little bit about the CIA and Mkultra mind control programs. And what they were is it's basically a story about drug abuse, drug experimentation, torture, hypnosis, inhumane acts. I'm going to be your host. I'll be co-hosting you with Brandon. And we're going to give you a little bit of information about the show and about the Mkultra mind control programs and how sick our fucking government is.
Yeah, this one is not a conspiracy theory. This actually happened and it's documented. You can look into it and it's everywhere. Yeah, we're gonna be talking on subjects like Mkultra and just everything that is going on in the world that we think people should know about, and
Absolutely.
What governments are doing
Information behind the scenes. But yeah, like he was saying, it's not a conspiracy theory. You know, it's factual. It's public domain. It's information that's been released through process of information,
Right.
Process of information released through the Freedom of Information Act, which I believe was established in the 1930s. So it's real documents that we looked over. We've also watched video testimony of real clients and patients and victims of these experiments that actually sued and got money from the Canadian government and also sued the American government and got paid for it.
This was all funded from the CIA,
yeah,
aka your tax dollars. So when we dive into this, it's just gonna kind of make you realize how messed up it is what they were doing, and with your money.
Yeah, so they were Project Mkultra is basically like it's like a branch off the family tree. It comes from other experiments that predate it.
Yeah.
That I believe it started with Project Bluebird, which was about interrogation, war criminal interrogation,
Right.
drug use, hypnosis, things like
Yeah.
that.
So basically, what they were trying to do after World War II was trying to find a way to infiltrate the enemy through the use of one of their own people, and by doing that with mind control, to basically try to get information, and basically a spy, if you will, which is also called a Manchurian candidate. The program, from records that we have, which are very little records, there's not a whole lot on this. The records were destroyed by Richard Helms, who was the director of the CIA, and they were all destroyed. He had them all destroyed in 1973. So this is just a little bit of the info that is available, and this is people, like you said, digging and going through the Freedom of Information Act to get this. And some of this is from survival testimony and stuff of people who went through it.
I mean, it was actually first made public before the Freedom of Information Act was even requested. The Freedom of Information Act was requested in 1977, it was made public by the CIA in 75. The new director, the new council, everybody that was there, they actually made it public. That's why I believe this was a controlled information release.
Right.
It's like when the Titanic hit the iceberg, it was way bigger than what you could see. And that's what this is, this information is. They let the little bit pick out the top and hit you and make you sink, but doesn't compare to what was really going on, what they were really doing, and probably what they really accomplished. Because to spend what was equivalent today of $100 million on these projects
over allegedly a 20-year period.
Yeah.
There's a few people in the government, CIA, who said that this back in the 70s, after they had already announced that this was going on, that it was still continuing going on. It's just crazy. Basically,
it happens in all different types of form. I'm pretty sure they perfected their techniques and their manipulation and their control aspects and things of that nature. And I mean, they were producing drugs and procedures to manipulate and weaken people's mind state, to force interrogation, to weaken and break an individual to a point that you can basically program whatever dialogue you want them to say.
Right.
And
they said wiping the slate clean of their brain, basically, and then
you're
putting whatever info they wanted in there.
With Bluebird and Artichoke, Bluebird turned into Artichoke, Artichoke turned into Mkultra. But with Bluebird and Artichoke, what you had was just straight, brutal, raw torture techniques.
Right.
Pumping them with drugs that they didn't even know the outcome of what these drugs were going to be. Abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, things of that nature.
Yeah, isolation, putting them in isolation, putting, hoods over their heads and doing, just straight nasty stuff. And what's crazy is we're going to dive into is that a lot of these tests were going on in major universities and hospitals. They had doctors and scientists on the CIA's payroll to carry out all these experiments.
Yeah, I mean, y'all just gotta wake up. Y'all gotta, like the podcast says, this is the level 1 woke. It's the first step to waking up. We're gonna help you. We're gonna guide you as we wake up, as we notice these things, as we research these things and get information. We're going to share it with y'all, but we also want y'all to don't just believe what we say at word. Don't take our word for value. Look into it, research it. Always analyze everything, question everything. If you read a book and you there's a certain outcome in the book, don't question the author or how he was raised, what mind state he was raised to write that book. Go back, just analyze everything. And this is what we're doing, and this is what we're going to do with you as we do our podcast. And we bring up these different subjects. They're mind-opening subjects, third-eye-opening subjects.
What a more, just even Mkultra shows that there's just no accountability in the government, that they, this wasn't even a slap on the wrist for them. It was just kind of like, yeah, we did this, sorry. And they ruined a ton of people's lives through this.
Not only did they do this, and it was only a slap on the wrist, but they did this after the Nuremberg Trials, after the Nuremberg Code policies were passed, after the American government adopted the Nuremberg Code policies.
You want to dive in that, what the Nuremberg policies is?
Yeah, all right. So the Nuremberg Trials, for those that don't know, were the Nazi war criminals that were prosecuted after World War II. Trials took place between 1945 and 1946. Now, we prosecuted all these top Nazi war criminals, and an operation after that took place called Paperclip, which was the government recruiting over 3,000 of these war criminals, scientists, SS officers, and other high-ranking Nazis of that nature, and bringing them over here to work for the CIA. To work
get their knowledge
for
from them
NASA to build us rockets and weapons and things like that. So just to give you a look right into these SS officers, these top-ranking Nazis officers, this is their life, all right? These guys were conditioned since at least 12 years old. Like they eat, sleep, and shit being controlled and being conditioned and thinking one thing and learning one thing and things of that nature. They're given a German Shepherd when they're young that grows up with them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think by the time they hit 17, I believe, and they become a SS officer, the lowest ranking SS officer you can become, to become this SS officer, you have to, by hand, strangle your German Shepherd that you just raised for 5 or 6 years with you.
That sounds like some Nazi shit.
That is Nazi. That shit just gave me goosebumps. Nazi shit to the fullest. You have to strangle. I have a Dutch Shepherd. That thought would never even cross my mind. So,
which is crazy too, is that they use the German Shepherds for everything. So I wonder what that symbolized.
Man's best friend. You just had to choke out man's best friend by your hand. You know how much fucking backlash that would get from fucking all these fucking animal protesters and animal abuser protesters and shit like that right now. Like,
what was America, it just to see that if you would play ball, basically? If you had this dog since you were...
It's not that you would play ball, but you wouldn't become an SS officer if you didn't choke your German Shepherd.
That's what I'm saying. That if you did it, that means you're going to play ball. They know that you're
meant to become an SS officer, the lowest ranking SS officer there is.
They knew that you were...
And these are the people, all right? These are the scientists and the SS officers that we recruited to come work for us. They were all prosecuted war criminals, acts against humanity. And they came and worked for the American government. I mean, fucking Bob Marley's doctor was a Nazi doctor that was caring for him. They think there's a whole theory of how he was injected with cancer, like in a shoe or something like that
through his
the thing is, one of his main loves was soccer.
Well, he was preaching.
So you take a man that loves soccer and give him cancer in his foot and say, we gotta cut your foot off if you want to live. And he didn't want to cut his foot off, and the cancer spread and killed him.
Yep, and that's they think they got rid of him because he was spreading love and unity and things like that. So they had to get rid of him, which that's on a whole nother.
He was just
level,
one. He was just another one of those that went against the grain, that said more, and spread a different message that he wasn't supposed to. But
Correct.
Hey, they let you, when you're on that level, they let you do your thing for a little bit,
just
and then
a little bit.
Eventually
you start talking, and
you're not gonna last for too long. But that's just how this
So,
Hollywood infrastructure, this fame and everything's set up. Nobody's likable to be around for that long. So.
Right. So basically, right after World War II, that's where this stuff really started to take off. Right, and the CIA, which the OSS turned into the CIA, correct? And they right around that time is when they started doing this mind control stuff, which basically that's what you were getting at with the Nazis. They were trying to use their knowledge. So obviously the Nazis knew something, and they were doing these experiments during World War II in concentration camps, and experimenting on them. The
Nazis were sick for
these
sure.
Doctors,
they were on biological experiments. They were trying to interbreed humans and animals, trying to interbreed like superior DNA.
Like there was that
cloning. They were, oh my god.
That one doctor who was obsessed with twins.
Things that are science fiction now that we see on TV, they were fucking trying to do shit. They were really trying to harm one twin to see if the other one would feel it.
Right.
That's also collective consciousness theory, but that's a whole nother episode. But the Nuremberg trial, and then the OSS, Office of Strategic Service, that was formed, and those guys, they did good, but they had branches. It's a lot of information to do research on and a lot to look into it. But they had different branches of the OSS, and some of the branches did do positive things in World War II as far as helping us advance behind enemy lines, as far as their subvert operations that nobody really knew about. But when it turned to Mkultra, that's when it was like kind of publicized, and that's the name. That's what they put out there for us to make big, and that's what they want us to recognize these programs as.
Right.
So it's an controlled information release. They're not really telling us. They're letting us know what was going on. There was 20-something thousand documents released on this topic. I mean, 20,000 documents and over a 20-year span, you do
That's
the
not
fraction.
even
That's not
1%.
Yeah, that's not even.
It's
a
not even
fraction of the
1%.
true documents. So
I believe that's not even 1% of what they had and have. So
that's just the petty shit
and Richard
that
Helms,
they want to release to us to make us think that that's what really happened, but they were into some deep shit.
right? Richard Helms was just as bad as these fucking Nazi war criminals, if you ask me. Trying to cover his tracks after launching Mkultra for 20 years. So you could go on about Mkultra and everything that they did for forever, and that's just in the little bit of information that they gave us. Some of these experiments and things that they were doing, like we were saying, they were doing in hospitals and universities, and even on their own employees, like their fellow employees. They were drugging each other in the CIA to see what would happen to their friend if they snuck some LSD in their drink. They just to see the side effects. Like it.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much you can believe of the information they released. You have Frank Olson was the first notable death from the CIA and working with those programs and those experiments. He was drugged with LSD 9 days before he died. Unknowingly drugged with LSD 9 days before he supposedly walked out and committed suicide. So when they say we were drugging each other, probably not.
You don't think?
They wasn't doing it in a free for all environment in their coffee and their food. That was a cover up for why this guy was drugged. Now they were drugging each other in a type of manner that they thought there were rats in the CIA and moles. Mm-hmm. So the people that they thought were giving, information to the other side, they would drug them.
What a good way to try to weed them out.
Yeah, they would.
That was the whole goal. Was to try to get information.
No, they would intentionally drug them and interrogate them. It wasn't. I'm gonna drug you not knowingly. Once LSD hit over there, all of them knew about it. It wasn't.
Right.
It wasn't. Oh, why am I tripping? If I know why I'm tripping because this fucking LSD that was just brought in the building.
Well, that was the whole point of like Mkultra was to get information. So if you think you got a rat in the CIA, why wouldn't you try these methods on them?
Why wouldn't you just take them in a room, inject them straight in a vein because it hits quicker, and then start interrogating them just like they were doing these mental patients in these hospitals? Why?
As far as we know, they could have.
The thing is, more than likely, they probably was, because let's give you this fairy tale butterfly story that's so friendly. We're just drugging everybody. That's bullshit, bro. They're fucking drugging people that they thought were enemy of the state, giving information away. Our government's crooked as fuck.
That's what
if they take part in this shit, don't believe the butterfly stories, the misinformation, the bullshit information that's wrapped up in real information is what they're trying to do.
Yeah, could be. What was it?
I mean, let's take a look at some of these documents. I got some documents from that were released, and
well, apparently they did test this stuff on actual, I guess, enemies of the state, if you will.
They tested on
Artichoke.
Everybody. So the U.S. General Accounting Office issued a report on September 29th, 1994. It stated between 1940 and 1974, the BOB and other national security agencies tested thousands and thousands of human test subjects with unknown hazardous fucking injections of who knows what kind of substances they were putting in these people. Mm-hmm. And then also working with the CIA, the Department of Defense gave hallucinogenic drugs to thousands of volunteer soldiers in the 1940s with zero information about the drug or the possible outcome of its use. That's in the 40s. That's what you were saying. That's Bluebird, right before Artichoke. And that was, that's them.
So they were
conning their own people. Listen, they're conning your family members. If those were your uncles or your grandparents, they're conning them by saying this is in the name of national defense. Do this for your country. You're the ultimate patriot. It's fucking bullshit. And then they fucking drug you and they fuck you up. And these people got permanent damage for life. They got fucking nerve issues. They got skin issues. PTSD. They fucking can't sleep. They don't remember shit. Their fucking memories wiped clean. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people. We're not talking about just hundreds of thousands of people.
It's crazy to me that this isn't bigger than
It's that 5G shit that they're about to come out with. That's probably going to be the ultimate fucking brain manipulation control.
They're slowly.
We're energy first and we're matter second.
It sounds crazy, but they're doing it subliminally already, man. They figured some shit out through these programs that they were doing and these experiments. They're just doing it on a mass scale, and that's what 5G, I believe, would be.
I mean, look at Frank Olson, right? A biological
I wanted to get
weapon
back on Frank
chemist
Olson, yeah.
for the laboratory of warfare for the Army. He was also contracted by the CIA, and this guy, so I would say late 40s, early 50s, a small village, a friendly village in France too, very friendly village, went mad. I mean, mad. I think there was over 300 people poisoned. There was 8 deaths, I believe, and over 50 to 100 people were checked into mental wards. Nobody could figure out what was happening. People were having hallucinogenic visions and things of that nature. So, come to find out, they were all drugged with LSD via bread supply. And when LSD was first manufactured by a company out of Britain, they threatened, supposedly, this is our story. I'll tell you the story, the documented story, and then I'll tell you what I think. All right. So, this company out of Britain that, created LSD, they threatened to put it on the open market. They threatened the U.S. government that they were going to put this LSD on the open market.
For what reason, though? Why would they?
It's a hallucinogenic drug.
They were going to just sell it?
Going to sell it. So they threatened to put it on the open market. They threatened to sell it. And America, in fear that the Russians would get their hands on it, bought up the world supply of LSD at that time. The world supply. So you got a town in France that's being poisoned with LSD, and America owns the only world supply of LSD at the time. But now, here's where shit runs wild, because France and Britain ain't too far apart. It was created in Britain.
Yep.
Also, what if this company in Britain gave that same offer to the Russians, like threatened to sell it to America, and then the Russians purchased it? So maybe they had 2 amounts of LSD, sold half to the Russians, half to America.
Sure, absolutely.
And that's very plausible, very possible that could have happened. So fuck these guys that made LSD.
Well,
I mean, not really, because they kind of, they contributed to that consciousness counterculture of the 60s where everybody was tripping out and, free consciousness, free thought, and it kind of backfired on them a little bit. Just the way they put it on the open, they flushed the open market.
I believe they were trying to do
social experiments.
Do a social experiment on a mass scale, and letting this shit out in the 70s with flower power and love and peace and the Grateful Dead and just everyone.
Just I'm gonna tell you a few things
Woodstock.
like you said that they do on a massive scale. Like they do massive experiments on massive scales because they need massive outcomes, massive results. Because at the end of the day, they want to fucking kill everybody on this planet. These guys are fucking sick. So listen to this. In 1953, the CIA injected radioactive iodine in newborn and pregnant women at Iowa University and also the University of Nebraska. All right. In 1955, they sprayed whopping cough bacteria over the coast of Tampa, Florida, resulting in dozens falling ill and 3 deaths.
Mm-hmm.
And then also in 1956, they released millions of mosquitoes carrying yellow fever over the town of Savannah, Georgia, and Avon, Florida. That resulted in hundreds and hundreds of people being affected by this yellow fever virus, and a few deaths also. And that's just, they also financed the fucking, that radiation program in New York. The CIA and Army combined, what was it? Mental patients that were already ill or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Fucking them up even more. These people died because, all right, imagine your grandmother or your aunt or somebody checking into a hospital because they don't want to die. And they need the best professional,
or even just going in for
help
anxiety or back pain.
No, but in these situations with this radiation payments,
the radiation.
They
Okay.
were ill. They were looking for help not to die.
Right.
And you put experiments and you put them through procedures that kill them. quicker.
Listen,
That advance whatever they have just to test and see if we can advance what they have already.
Right.
I mean, it's a fact. It's a proven fact that the U.S. manufactures and can produce HIV. They have the patent to HIV to produce it and manufacture it.
They put that shit out.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Well, it plays back into just the MKUltra thing. They would have people going into these hospitals and stuff just for minor anxiety.
Postpartum depression.
Just
they had too
minor
many kids
things.
and can't lose weight. And my leg hurts. It's all in my head, but let me check into this. These are accounts that we're saying. These are examples from real patients and real testimony that sued the Canadian American government over these programs and won.
Yeah.
And
what did they get? They sued and won, but who was it? Was it Bill Clinton that put out an apology in the 90s or something about it, or was it? I can't remember.
Yeah, actually,
one of these presidents
no, you're right.
apologized
in 1995, a year after, check this out, guys. Right, a year after Frank Olson's body was re-examined and a second autopsy was done, and it was found out that he had cranial injury before he supposedly went out the window and committed suicide.
Before he hit the ground.
All right, he had cranial injury. And it was ruled a murder case in New York. The state prosecutor, did open up a case and try to look for evidence, but it was so long ago they couldn't. Cold case. Basically, it's still a cold case right now. But it is prosecutable if the people would just have been brought to justice.
Yeah, his family exhumed his body in 1994.
And then right after that is what you're saying, 1995, Bill Clinton actually apologized. There's video of this, guys. Go to YouTube, go to Google, and look up Bill Clinton apologized. 1995, Bill Clinton apologizing for government experiments done on people that are still affected to this day. Listen, they were testing nerve gas on people just to see what the lethal dose was. There's this one gentleman that gave his account, one testimony, that he went into a room with like 3 other people, went into the room, everybody sat down. They said the doctors put a cloth over their arm, and on that cloth, they took a clear liquid and dropped 2 rows of 10 drops on their arm. Then they were given a mask, a type of breathing mask to filter the air, and they were told not to take them off. The doctors walked out, and then the gentleman said it wasn't until the door shut that he realized he was in a gas chamber. And then he said he tripped out and he was having all these spasms and he never felt so claustrophobic. A bunch of stuff was going on. And then he's like, about 45 minutes later, they let us go. He came out to the fresh air. He said he's never been so happy to see the blue sky and the sun.
That's fucking nightmare.
So what they were doing, they were testing the lethal dose of nerve gas on these people. And they still have permanent damage till this day.
Right.
That's your U.S. government. That's the people y'all get WIC from. That's the people y'all that take care of y'all, that we pay taxes to, that we give our money to, because I guess they say we have to. You really question this shit. Really, it's shit you got to look into. And once you get older, it's info that everybody should know. It's common. It should be common knowledge.
The main thing here is that nothing fucking happened to them for doing all this shit, and nothing is gonna happen.
Yeah, I mean, all right. So they released, like, we tried to get, like, what was it, a few months ago? We tried to get information on the Kennedy files, but fucking, who was it? Bush Sr. was still alive. This fucking dirtbag. So we couldn't get information on the Kennedy files. So Trump pushed it back a year or two. But now that he's dead, trust me, in a year or two, we'll have Freedom of Information Act on the Kennedy files.
A lot of that shit's gonna be redacted.
And it will tell you that the CIA was involved in a cover-up about his death.
For sure.
They won't release the whole story because
a lot of it will be redacted. But, a lot of it will be redacted.
They won't release the whole story because they never do, but they'll release
it's frustrating.
a fairy tale part of it.
Let me backtrack with the whole Frank Olson thing, though. Okay, so you were talking about that city in France where they drugged their bread and stuff with LSD and made a ton of the people in this town go crazy and things like that. Wasn't Frank Olson a part of that?
All right. So, Frank Olson, there was a home video camera, a personal video camera of Frank Olson that was found after he died. I think it might have been made public. And it shows him, they don't know if it was covert operations or what, but it shows him in 5 or 6 different countries over there in France around that area around the time that it was poisoned.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of makes sense when he was trying to confide in people that he never spoke to, like his wife's brother and things of that nature. He's trying to ask them about personal information, but about right and wrong. Thank you, Kevin. And so he told his wife that he made a terrible mistake. He said he wanted to quit. He wanted to break his contract with the CIA. He wanted to leave the Army Warfare Laboratories, and he wanted to retrain as a dentist. How humble is that, though?
Yeah.
From what you've seen and what you might have took part in, how humble is that to you?
There's no definitive.
For you to retrain yourself as a dentist.
But
the fact that you put it like you said, he was in France around that time.
Right.
It happens. He's feeling bad about something.
Yeah.
Then
there's no definitive proof of that, but that make of him being a part of that specific event.
No.
But it makes sense because he was working for biological weapons, right? Like
we're just putting 2 and 2 together, researching like we're trying to tell you.
Right. He was a biological bioweapons engineer,
biological weapon chemist for the
right,
Army Warfare Laboratory.
Right. So it's not too crazy to think that he could have been there and then had some kind of regret about it. Did he kill himself jumping out of that window? Probably not. He, like you said, he was feeling
with his family.
He was talking.
He was in love with his wife. He was in love with his kids. Much. You're right. He wasn't going to kill himself. Actually, the night that he supposedly walked out of the window in New York, 10-story building, walked off the 10-story, he also had another CIA partner in the room with him. Now, this guy was set there to watch. I mean, Frank was he was talking, he was questioning, he was asking out to his brother-in-law, and, you know, what should I, trying to get away, and he wanted to quit. He was under surveillance by his own people. Okay. He became a subject to these experiments.
Right.
He was drugged with LSD 9 days before he died.
Right.
And the way LSD works, depending on how big is the dose, you can trip for a month off that shit if they give you enough. He was probably still tripping 9 days later. And his handler was in the room with him, traveling around with him prior to that.
Why did he have a handler? Because they were drugging his ass.
For sure. They were drugging him.
And that's another thing.
Under surveillance.
And that's another thing in MK Ultra. Some of these people have handlers, which is just getting into just some... It's not real relevant, but he had one because he was high up. He was doing these things with these guys. He was working for the CIA. And the story is that they, like you said, it was like 90 days before he died. He went to this retreat with other CIA agents, and the CIA agents, like I was saying, they were doing these experiments on each other. Spiked his drink with LSD, and while he was at this retreat, and he kind of like lost it.
And this guy died a few weeks after his 43rd birthday, and 43, 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 is a Illuminati, Freemason, numerology number term. So it appears a lot in a lot of things, just like 13, just like 3, 33, stuff like that. So
right.
It could be conspiracy, but it's still in there. Like
it could be
facts.
I mean, we'll talk about that stuff, that numerology shit, because that shit's real.
Yeah, for sure. There's a lot of stuff that had to do with 7-13, with famous people's deaths.
I don't
know if they're sacrificial dates or numbers or what, but
it's fucking nuts.
It's real.
Just doing research on MK Ultra. I had heard about Operation Paperclip, but that's kind of how I found out about Operation Paperclip, was doing research for MK Ultra. I had heard it, but I haven't looked, never really looked into it. It's all right here in black and white in the crooked.
Yeah, guys.
Crooked
I
shit.
mean, once you get into it, one thing, it becomes so interesting. Any researcher is gonna go another step further back and another step further back and find out this and find out that, and that's just how we get into all these different subjects. And MK Ultra is something that's been declassified It's public domain. It's public knowledge.
Yeah,
for
it's
your
not a
own.
theory.
And we just want y'all to know about it. We want y'all to open your eyes to this. We want y'all to realize what our government did to civilians, unknowing civilians. Like, listen, they had over 80 institutions, and they were using pharmaceutical companies. They were using prisons. They were using mental wards. They were using hospitals and colleges.
Yep.
And they were fucking mental patients up that were already fucked up. Some of them legit fucked in the head, and they made them worse. And some people that had minor things, like you were saying, depression, anxiety, postpartum depression, and they made it fucking worse.
Listen,
In one case in Kentucky, they gave LSD to a mental patient via IV 174 days straight. That's like a 6 month trip. Like, you're tripping balls for 6 months. You're seeing the walls fucking sweat. You're seeing the geometric patterns of tile on the floor move around.
The goal to make them go crazy.
It's fucked up, man.
Wipe their minds. Yeah, and 12 of these hospitals that agreed to this program did tests on cancer patients, people who were on their deathbed.
Terminally ill. And they just speeded their process of ending their life up. That's like euthanasia. Like, that's against the fucking law. So these guys, trust me, they broke numerous laws.
Hundreds, maybe even thousands of laws.
Numerous
man.
codes, numerous inhumane human ethics. Like, come on. What doctors that want to perform? Like, there's this doctor, Ewan Cameron. And, all right, so there's this famous mental ward that y'all could look up. It's in Canada. It's called the Allen Institution. And very prestige place, very prestige doctor there at the time, Ewan Cameron, Donald Ewan Cameron. And he basically started a term and techniques called psychic driving.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where shit gets fucking like the movies, like Poltergeist and shit. Like, were they really doing that? Yes, they fucking were really doing this.
This whole thing sounds like a bad movie.
So what it is, psychic driving is just to fuck with your psyche, is to change everything about you. So he would start off with depattering. And what he would do is he would give you LSD, large amounts of pure LSD 25 to break down your personality, to get you to act different. Mm-hmm. And then he would, in another IV in your other arm, he would put in barbiturates to suppress your memory. And then once you're on IV, one IV of LSD, one IV of barbiturates, then they start the electric shock therapy. And they were shocked. This is documented, medical documented facts. The people that sued the government got these documents. They were shocking these people 600 times the normal dose. Like, they were shocking these people until they would produce seizures in some cases.
Do you think that they got any kind of results in mind? Do you think they figured out how to do mind control?
If that was their overall goal, I'm not sure it was, because that's the mainstream idea of what their overall goal is.
Well, mind control can be lumped sum into.
I mean, it is, but listen,
a bunch of things, but
you don't want to broaden your view to just thinking this is one thing and this is one thing. All right, so I think they got the results they were looking for. Yep. In the case of depattering, when you hook one person up to you got one arm LSD, one arm barbiturates, electric shock therapy. You delete the person's brain to the point that they're no longer toilet trained. There was cases where these females didn't know how to use the bathroom.
Right.
They had kids. They didn't recognize their kids, their husbands, or their whole memories were wiped clean. They were brainwashed. Their brain was washed clean. They only got they came home. They started acting weird. Of course, their family investigated. They had to get medical reports to get this shit out, and that's basically what started up these lawsuits. But yes, they definitely succeeded in from what we could see as medical reports, from washing people's brain clean. And then not only that, not only would they depattern you, they would try to reprogram you. They had sleep therapy, sleep deprivation, right? So their sleep therapy, they would put you. One case, this lady was asleep for 86 days straight, non-waking up, non-broken sleep, medical induced non-broken sleep while being pumped with drugs. 86 days straight. And That was their sleep therapy, and when you were sleeping, they would play hundreds and thousands of repetitions of a recording in your under your pillow to try to program you to whatever statement they wanted to program you.
Right.
And
yeah, they were also, it kind of is the same thing. They would get you to this state of just, blankness, and then flash pictures into your mind and things. Some of the survivor testimony, this is what they said, was they'd be, strapped to this bed, given drugs, and then flashed the same photos over and over and over. The same, just couple of photos to imprint it into their mind, to put it deep into their, subconscious, whatever the goal was. But it's just torture. It's just
you can look these people up. It's public.
It's just torture.
They're out there, and you can listen to their testimony. The same thing we're telling you, you can listen to it. That's what we want you to do. We urge you to get out there and listen to it, because, I mean, we're not professionals. We're independent researchers, and we do our own. So we can't remember everything, and we can't say everything that happened and do everything, but it's out there.
It's information overload. We've done so much, just even talking on the phone over it, like, this is some shit I found out. There's so much to it. You can go on for days, days, and it's crazy. It makes me wonder if the program still exists today.
Oh yeah.
What are they doing? And I think just from some of the stuff I've seen, it's going on in our prisons right now. Our state prisons. I think
they were
doing
doing experiments in the 40s, 50s, 60s in private prisons, and
I'm actually gonna make one thing.
Yeah, and they were trying experimental drugs and army laboratory drugs, and our army has done unthinkable things that would break any laws, any humanitarian laws. Like, it's just, as a person, right from wrong, and you shouldn't be fucking doing this shit. Who gives a the name of national defense? Says who, motherfucker?
Right.
What threat do we really have?
Why do you have to take dying, sick people, or even just innocent, unwilling people?
If this country has any threat, it's a threat because all our government and our army does is go to other countries, lay them the fuck down, take whatever resources they want to take, rape their wives, rape their mothers, do what the fuck they want, set a new regime, arm rebels. Like, this the government is all about money. Actually, the American government, that's the only way they make money, is import and export of weapons. All those bombs that fucking Israel was dropping on Palestine and Syria and all that shit, those were from American fighter jets that we sold them.
Right. So, I believe like how you were saying, these people are who are experimented on, they're fucked up over time. They have PTSD and things like that. But the thing is what I had read on is some of this stuff, like police interrogations and things like that, is, came from their experiments on MKUltra to swayed someone into basically giving a false confession or things like that. Like, it's all about how your psyche, and when you're in an interrogation room, it's a small room with no windows, nothing on the walls. They
turn the heat down. They put
close
the
you
temperature
in
at a certain temperature just to make you feel a certain
Right.
way. They
Right.
know how the human body and anatomy
They know.
acts.
I think that's
the
what they
psyche
got
and
from
all
MKUltra was I think they learned a lot about human psyche.
I think they got everything they wanted out of that program.
I think
Seriously.
they learned.
They advanced it to a new program because they coordinated with the Army.
Yep.
They coordinated with the Navy. They
Psychiatrists, doctors.
They had a CIA Navy sub project called the Perfect Concussion, and they were using radiation waves to render people unconscious from a distance. They did it on monkeys first.
Yep.
And they kept frying the eternal core of like the monkey's brain. It kept getting too hot, and monkeys kept dying. But they figured out a way to tweak this radiation wave And
to knock someone out.
And they did. And the Russians were doing this in the 40s, guys. Look this up. In the 40s, the Russians knocked the whole village out via radiation wave from miles away.
The ultimate KO.
Like, bro, I'm just going to go in, knock y'all out with a radio wave, take whatever the fuck I want while I'm in there. Like, imagine what people was doing when they were asleep. Like, how long was you asleep for? Like, and then what did they go in there and take? What did they do? Like,
standing there making breakfast and fucking wake up on the floor.
Imagine the mental patients like in these hospitals like that were on sleep therapy for 100 days. Like,
bro, terrifying.
I'm pretty sure these bitches were getting fucked by these doctors.
Sure,
like there was some
ruthless. There was no boundaries. There was no boundaries. They didn't give a fuck about anything about your well-being. If you're fucking dying of cancer, you're passed out drunk.
They called him Wild Bill Donovan, William Donovan, the Wild Bill Donovan. Just to look that guy up, that name right there. Google that shit and look this fucking dirtbag up. And you better hope your grandmother wasn't around in that era because you never know what could have happened.
He could be your granddad.
Like they were disposing homeless people. Listen, this was one of the accounts from a raw testimony from a lady that survived these experiments, right? And the Allen in Canada. Look that place up.
Yep.
All right. This lady said, this gentleman, he got out of sleep therapy. It's usually for 3 months or longer or some shit like that. Mm-hmm. He got out of sleep therapy, and I guess he was told he was going to be released. Whether he was hypnotized or not, we don't know. But he ran around the whole hospital with a big smile on his face, like a crazy coot, saying to everybody, I'm going home, bye, just telling everybody bye. Right after he was done telling everybody bye, I just got the cold chills. Right after he was done telling everybody bye, this guy went to the top floor and jumped off and killed himself. Landed like in front of the back door. They said they didn't use that back door for like 2 years.
And he was only in there for
a leg problem, a leg issue that his doctor said was in his head.
But he was in a sleep program?
Depattering.
Sleep program.
Sleep therapy, psychic driving. You go in there for, exactly. You go in there because your toenails growing in wrong and you're going to come out not remembering nothing.
What a perfect way with no evidence or it leading back to you to get someone to brainwash them to fucking killing themselves.
They were injecting these people with fucking radioactive iodine. They injected over 400 Africans with syphilis and denied them treatment.
That's documented.
These 400 African male men that was injected with syphilis, it is documented. You could look it up. You should look it up. They were denied treatment. And they went on to infect multiple women, birth multiple kids that were all infected with syphilis. This is like some population control. Like, listen, you can also look this up. The CIA was very interested in bird flus and bird formations and patterns and how they flew. Yeah. Because what is the best way to spread a virus in the world? Through birds that fly everywhere?
Right.
Like, come on, these fuckers are trying to take us out on a mass scale. It's time to fucking wake up.
They'll do it too.
If it's the first level, wake up and start looking at this
That's
shit.
my belief. They'll do it too. They'll do it.
Absolutely. So
it's coming. It's just how they're gonna do it is the question.
So, excuse me. In 1966, the Army/CIA in New York and Chicago, and this is another proven fact. You can look it up. They tried to pass around a virus through electric light bulbs that you screw in your house. Look it up. It's the craziest shit that they had. And I think it was only announced because they got caught with it. If it wasn't, they never got caught, we wouldn't have known. Just like the anthrax scare in the early 2000s. That was the fucking CIA experimenting in some new shit.
Once they get caught, it's just like, oops, sorry. We're sorry, guys.
They're not even sorry. They're not
They have
sorry.
to publicly say that shit, but they're not fucking sorry.
Fuck no, they're not. All right, so listen to this, right? The operation spanned over 20 years. It had over 150 sub-projects that were sponsored by Mkultra. That's 150 different projects going on. That's what we were talking about.
Bluebird, Artichoke, Monarch. I mean, these are just some of the names you can.
They operated out of over 80 institutions. They had over 125 new experimental drugs that they had no idea what would happen, that they tried through these experiments. There were 8 sub-projects dealing in hypnosis. 2 of those had drug use, hypnosis/drug use in them. Over 5 top colleges were involved, like Harvard, Yale, Columbia, Stanford. That's just being some of them.
Yeah, major universities and hospitals.
And they spent hundreds of millions of dollars on it, so it's
of our money.
Taxpayers' money.
Of our money.
Destroying civilians, unwitting subjects, unknowing subjects. Like they had an operation called Climax, right? Operation Midnight Climax.
I was just going to ask you if you wanted to get into that.
It was crazy because that's kind of basically what started getting LSD into the social setting. That's what got it distributed to people and things like that. And Midnight Climax started at New York and then moved to California, San Francisco mainly. And they set up brothels and houses.
Safe houses with two-way mirrors.
They use hotels and rent apartments out.
Yeah.
Like apartments. Imagine your neighbor and when you're living at an apartment.
Just bringing Johns over.
And
but there's
video equipment during the day and John's over at night. Like
there's some guys in black suits going through the back door with video equipment, and then at night there's a different guy here every single night. But they were paying prostitutes to drug Johns, and
they wasn't paying prostitutes.
Okay.
They
were threatening prostitutes.
They were blackmailing them. Of course, they got those people that couldn't fight back, the drug addicted, the homeless.
Oh, they're probably paying them in drugs.
They would take heroin addicts and addict them to morphine. And then they did this to thousands of people. If you're addicted to heroin, they would break you to the point where you were showing the most symptoms of withdrawal you could before dying. Then they would bring you down on Valium, get you addicted to Valium, break you from that, throw you on morphine, get you addicted.
Never-ending cycle.
Look that shit up. This shit is crazy.
It's fucking. I don't even want to get into some of this shit. It's fucking nasty and
Climax,
it's fucked up.
It was these female hookers that they were being used against their will, but these guys, these CIA agents, they set up brothels. Two-way mirrors and all that. Cameras.
Who's the fucking pervert who was like, I have an idea?
Who started this
Who
shit?
Started
right?
Midnight
and
Climax?
One of the main comments, if you look this information up, one of the main comments was, we really learned a lot about how the human nature is intimately in the bed. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, how is that a response from a CIA agent or whoever that was questioned? Like, how is that a response? We really learned a lot. I mean, there's some sick shit, but I've heard a lot about sexual energy and sexual attraction and high frequent sexual like.
That's probably what they were delving into, is trying to tap into that. I believe they were trying to tap into every single thing they could possibly imagine.
Of course they were, because what the fuck do you think
with
those fucking German Nazis were doing over there? Everything they possibly could, and we got all of them to come work for us, so they were trying to do everything they possibly could over here. These dudes were conditioned. Listen, these scientists and these SS officers that we brought from Nazi, they were conditioned too.
Yeah.
That's why we brought them, because they did what the fuck they were told to do. And that's how they were conditioned for many years over there. They didn't answer shit. They didn't ask questions. They did what the fuck they were told to.
Couldn't conditioning technically be a form of mind control?
Absolutely. Listen, if y'all wanna look this shit up, the ancient Chinese mastered mind control, hypnosis, all that shit thousands of years ago. This shit been around for forever. So don't, just because it's coming out or people are just starting to wake up, like, culturally speaking, our ancestors were so much more consciously awake than we are. They were on a whole nother conscious level. Something happened and we fell, our conscious level fell, probably back down to the lowest level that it could be. But we're not consciously aware like they were, clearly, because the Mayans were writing calendars that were predicting eclipses and all that stuff thousands of years down the line. You know how long they had to watch the skies to be able to predict when eclipse
Right.
or something was gonna
Right.
happen, and they fucking did that shit. And the mainstream media tries to play it down like, oh, the end of times. That's what it means. That's not what it fucking
No,
means.
it's a new cycle. That's all it was.
They were on a whole nother conscious level than us, man.
They were on a lot of different shit than us. They knew a lot. This, maybe we'll post some of this, info in the video so you can get this information yourself if you wanted to look it up. Maybe some of the
Some of the
things,
links.
because if you go to YouTube and you type in MKUltra, it's gonna bring up fucking Cardi B and Justin Bieber and like, oh, they're under mind control.
Britney Spears.
You could
and
get
a lot
into,
of that shit makes sense though, because a lot of
it
it
does.
has to do with split personalities and bringing out somebody else. And I mean, there's even video of Denzel Washington saying, when I perform, when I'm acting, somebody else comes out and takes over.
Right.
And then you have Beyonce with her classic Sasha Fierce, her split personality.
Yep.
You have Nicki Minaj with what, Roman or whatever his name is.
Right.
And then not only that, go back to Britney Spears.
Britney
She
Spears
used
is a
to
big
walk
one.
around with the fucking pink wig on and talking a British
There's
accent.
a lot of shit in
That
her
was
songs
that was
that
her fucking.
Yeah.
And she had handlers. She had known handlers.
Yeah.
Y'all Google Britney Spears handlers, and this guy's a fucking pedophile, bro.
Yeah.
Look
Yeah.
him up. He's a fucking
Well,
pedophile.
there's a lot of pedophilia in
But
Hollywood.
I'm not saying all that is real, but I will tell you this: if you have never, or if you have seen the show Roseanne, we're older, we're a little older. We know.
Sure,
Roseanne. And they had a new sitcom.
And they had a new one out.
Right.
Yeah.
Just look her up. I think her name's Roseanne Barr. I'm
Yeah,
not
Roseanne
sure.
Barr. Yeah.
All right, look her up. I believe in 2013, 2014, she was on like Good Morning Today or something like that, and she was asking questions, and she flat out came out and straight up said MK Ultra mind control rules in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Through whatever advertisements and just
Look, she might say
seeing the same
some
shit.
crazy shit and do some crazy things.
You think
but
Kanye was acting like
why?
that for no reason?
Look, Kanye's gonna come out and be like, and I think has dropped some hints that he was under some kind of
Let
shit.
me break it down for you. All y'all want to get mad that when Kanye said slavery was a choice, 400 years of slavery, that was a choice. All right, I'm gonna break it down to you because he just dropped some knowledge on you without you even knowing it. First, slavery only existed for about 200 years in America. 1618 it started, right? So from 1618 to when he said that would be 2018. That's 400 years.
Right.
So what he's saying is we're still slaves.
Still slaves.
400 years of slavery is a choice. And that's what we're here to do to help y'all wake up a little bit as we go and realize shit like that. Kanye was dropping hints. So
It's in there. All I was getting at was if you want to look into this, just say you want to use YouTube. Be careful about your sources because it might be a lot of that stuff, Hollywood, things like that. To get the historical stuff about it, you got to do a little more keywords about it to look a little more into it. But yeah, I mean, I believe some of that Hollywood stuff is going on. I mean, there's a lot of weird shit out there. I mean, some of those videos are amusing to watch. Is it all real? Probably not, but definitely interesting.
yeah, so I mean, overall, MK Ultra, bro.
Okay.
It's just a fucked up. I mean, listen, it's a fucked up operation on human subjects that didn't know what was going on, had no idea what was about to happen to them, was tripping fucking balls off of LSD and multiple other drugs. It was
Right.
just, I mean, you're in a fucked up situation and it feels worse and it feels like it can never get better. Like, how do you get through that? You break down mentally, and then you cease to exist mentally. And these people really were brainwashed, and these people were really affected for life. They were testing nerve gas on people. They were testing whopping cough gas. They were testing yellow fever. I'm talking about 4 or 5 things that they did out of hundreds of things that you could look up that they did.
Yeah.
Like,
It's fucking sad, man.
Injecting radioactive iodine into infants, they were doing that, like, just to see what a lethal dose would be. And then because the parents unknowing telling them, oh, your kid was born with a defect or something was wrong with them. They're not going to make it, not knowing that we just injected them with some shit and they just died.
Yeah, a lot of babies were taken from their mothers like, oh, your baby died. And then that was it. That was the only explanation they got.
And a lot of times back in the day, they were selling these babies' organs. Believe it or not, deep state, black market shit, they were selling these babies' organs. Look it up. And they were having fake funerals for these kids that weren't even in the fucking caskets.
Yeah, they dig them up and there'd be nothing fucking in there.
It's brutal. It's brutal. It's fucking cruel, man.
It's fucked up. But I kind of want to talk about the 5G thing. So as crazy as all of this shit we just talked about is, it's true. Is it crazy to think that 5G could be something nefarious?
All right, 5G is something. It's like the rest of the regular technology that we have, but worse. Because it's a proven fact that it's not good to have a cell phone in your hand all day.
Right, and 5G is way more powerful.
5G, but what they're saying about 5G is that the way 5G works, and if this is what I read, so you can verify this or not. If not, we'll leave information.
We're treading on kind of,
so you can text us and let us know. But from what I get from 5G, is that they would have to put a 5G box every 2.5 blocks or 2 miles. So there would be all these new electrical whatever boxes that they want to tell you that they are.
Yeah.
Who knows what the fuck they really are? But they would be throughout your whole city. Your every fucking corner, every other block.
There's some of these that have popped up already that, not saying they're 5G, but they're these things that people don't know what the fuck they are.
They tested 5G, right? I think it was in a town in Britain or somewhere. They tested 5G, and at the same time they tested it, hundreds and hundreds of birds fell out the sky.
Yeah.
At
Also,
the exact same time.
They also were
Google that shit and look it up.
They were testing 5G on top of a fire station. I don't remember the state or anything like that, but pretty much every one of those firefighters in that station, because they had the tower on their station, all got sick, all started getting real bad health problems, radiation poisoning, like
they don't
the shit's
listen,
not
they giving
right.
it to people that's defending you, that's helping you out on fires. And
Firefighters.
Listen, when Michael Jackson said they don't care about us, and Tupac said they don't give a fuck about us, they were not lying. They do not give a fuck about any of us. All these things. Listen, why would they be interested in bird flus and bird formation patterns and the way they fly?
Population control.
They're trying to spread some shit.
Absolutely.
Come on, the bird flu was always a scare.
Well,
yellow fever. They're spreading that shit.
The rumor is they want to get the population down to 500 million.
And when you really get into these conspiracies with Mkultra, they were also talking about having sleep operatives that could brainwash them, and then you can program them to carry out a task without them knowing it. And and they broke it down. Like, if I was a general officer and you were a general officer, and I was in fucking Portland, and fucking, matter of fact, I'm going to say Colorado. I'm in Colorado, and you're in Europe, right? Anywhere you want to be over there. So I'm here and you're there.
Brisbane.
I have somebody, I give him a code. I say the moon is clear.
That's
when
your code word.
I say that, it triggers his mission, which is to carry a message to Europe, to you. And when he gets to you, you say the moon is clear, and he tells you what needs to be said.
Right. Does he have any memory of doing that?
He has no memory of doing that.
Right.
And this is proven. This is proven that they have done this. They've made movies.
Okay,
about
so
this
MKUltra
shit.
was successful.
Listen, Hollywood and the government, they release real information in movies.
They rub it in your face.
They don't rub it in your face, but they're kind of preparing you. Even like when it comes to aliens, right? If we were never introduced to aliens back in the 40s, Area 51, all that shit, and they just landed on our front porch today, we would be so shook. The world would be in panic. We would go into chaos. But they implemented so many alien movies that some of them are good encounters, some of them are bad, that our minds fucked up. If they do come, we don't know what to think.
We won't know.
First of all, we won't know what to think. But not only will we not know what to think,
we'll be a little more ready.
We'll be a little more ready because they done showed us this through all these movies and through Hollywood, and now we know that's a possibility that they're out there.
Right.
So this is how they work. This is how everything works. NASA works. with the serpent's tongue. We went
Some-
through this. NASA has a serpent's tongue through the symbol of their NASA symbol has a serpent's tongue through it. The serpent, we all know in the Bible, means, to deceive or deception, to lie, whatever. Serpent is bad, it's evil.
Right.
And NASA translated into English means deception.
Right.
NASA in Hebrew is Nasa, right? And translated into English
Nasha,
it means
Nasha.
And translated into English means deception. So they fucking lied to us, so don't support NASA no more. Did they go to the moon? I'm gonna say they did.
Support
because
SpaceX.
we were for sure SpaceX, occupy Mars.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna say we did go to the moon.
Yeah.
I'm a round Earth believer.
Yep.
We did go to the moon, and I'm gonna say we went to the moon because we was in a space race
Right.
with the Russians, right? So if Soviets, Russians, all them, we were in a space race.
Right.
And if we wouldn't have made it to the moon, they would have been the first ones to disprove us.
Yeah.
They were watching us. They were watching us. They had satellites. They were watching us the whole way going up there. They knew we got there.
Right.
So
You want to know my theory or what I believe?
There's still mirrors. There's still mirrors, ladies and gentlemen. There are mirrors on the moon that we put there that you can shine lasers off of. The original flag is still on the moon that we planted there.
Yep.
With right telescopes, you can see this. It's
This little flag.
We're-
I believe that
we were
I
there.
believe we went to the moon. I believe that the moon landing tapes were faked. I believe the original footage got fucked up in the radiation. They didn't know
Van
that
Allen
shit was
belts, the
going to
Van Allen
happen.
belts.
They had to keep morale up because we were going through war, and I believe we did go. They just that the tapes were faked because
And
the
not only
shit
that,
got
listen,
fucked up.
if you look into it, there was a very top of the line director at that time that was casted, I believe, to fake these tapes. And I think his daughter was threatened or something was going on. I forgot his name, but he had directed other
Stanley Kubrick.
No, maybe. But listen to this. He directed other movies after that had keys and like symbolic, like subliminal message that they didn't go to the moon or that they did go to the moon, but he was forced to fake it.
Yeah, Stanley Kubrick.
And he was forced to fake it.
Yeah, Stanley
And
Kubrick.
it was like something about
Look,
a wall, going to the door, opening it up. Like it was
The Shining,
crazy.
bro. He directed.
The Shining.
He directed The Shining, and there's a bunch of subliminal shit about space and the moon landing Apollo 13 throughout that entire movie. The carpet looks like the launch pads at NASA. The boy was wearing an Apollo 13 shirt. The room number on the door. I can't remember
Exactly what I'm talking
I can't
about.
remember what that shit was.
I
He was dropping
I haven't looked
hints.
too much into it, but I think he was, and I think he felt bad, just like a lot of people from the MK Ultra programs that thought they were helping and sacrificing in the name of national defense, and he thought he was probably doing something right at the time.
Right.
And that's a whole nother episode that we
That's
will
a
definitely
whole
get
nother
into.
thing for
But
sure.
at the same time,
But it kind of
we were
plays
there.
into what we're talking about is where they
we were there,
put
and
this shit.
whether we found something there or we seen things that we were not supposed to see, that's still open for debate. Which there's
pyramids on the moon.
Listen to look Google that. They found an ancient artifact woman. They dubbed her name Mona Lisa. Supposedly she was found frozen in Antarctica or somewhere or some shit like that. I believe this lady was on the moon. I believe she was pulled from a spacecraft on the moon that was there when we got there.
Really?
Because there's secret audio,
I
like
gotta
hidden
look this
audio of like Neil Armstrong saying they're here, they're lined up on the far side of the crater. Their ships are massive. They're watching us. They're observing us.
I've seen
All
that.
right, now listen to this. I'm gonna tell you something you might not know, and you might.
I didn't know
already
about that woman, so you're
you
dropping
didn't know
shit
about
right
that
now.
Not NASA shit either, right? But now listen to this. Did you know if you take Neil and A from Armstrong and that's backward is alien?
Yeah.
Come
Alien.
on, man. That's they put
Okay,
putting
so
this shit in your
you
face.
want me to
look that shit up? Neil A backwards is alien.
You want to know what the theory is of why they put this shit in your face? It's because
want
they
you to
believe.
know.
Well, they believe in karma. So
They want
if
you to
they
slowly wake
if
up.
they slowly show you what they're gonna do to you or to the population and shit, there's not as bad repercussions. It's kind of an off kilter thing.
Repercussions from who though? Where are the repercussions?
Wherever
from?
they think that
Ultimate
shit's
energy,
just
or-
that energy, wherever they think that shit's coming from.
I'm
It's
not buying it.
listen. I
Then
said
why
it.
do
I
in
said
the
it was
first
off
place?
kilter. I
No,
didn't say
mean,
it was
Why do it in the first place though?
just to. I don't know. That's the thing is to rid of that karma.
Me, I don't believe in karma. I do believe in energy because we're energy first and we're matter second. So I believe in
Right.
energy. I don't believe in karma. I don't believe there's some unforced nature judging you on things you've done before. That's like God.
I agree.
That's God.
I agree.
So I don't really believe in God like that, because what is God?
Where's the
On what version of God are we
For
talking about?
sure.
Because we get into the Bible.
Yeah.
We're in a Christian nation right now. We're in America, so we're talking about the King James Bible that was translated from Hebrew. And the translation from Hebrew doesn't match up to the King James version. In Genesis, when they say God created the heavens and earth,
right?
when it says God, God is El. In
Yeah.
Hebrew, God is El.
Yeah.
So it doesn't say El though in Hebrew. It doesn't say El there. It doesn't say God. It says Elohim. Elohim is God's S with a
God's plural.
multiple gods. It says gods, multiple gods created the earth and heavens. And this goes on and on throughout the translation of Genesis and other books, how the Hebrew language, and it's not even Hebrew language. I forgot the real native language, but it's similar to Hebrew, and Hebrews occupied that land, so I think it became popular as Hebrew language, but it really wasn't Hebrew language. I gotta look it up.
Probably an old
It's
old
a really
language.
old dialogue, and so Elohim, God, make him in our image. Who's our image? When God said, "Let's make him in our image."
Listen, we could do a whole episode just on that shit.
When Cain killed Abel, and God came and found out,
Right.
and God cast Cain out of the garden,
Right.
and Cain was scared to go out there because he said they would kill him. Who is they?
If
Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel is the only person on the Bible, or on the earth, on the earth at that time, why would he be scared to go out of the garden because he think they would kill him? Who is they? But not only did he say that, the Bible and God confirmed it, because God gave him a special marker so he wouldn't be touched when he went out there. Mm-hmm. So I think Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel were some aliens, right?
Sure, and if you leaving the garden,
I think they were the Anunnaki, and they came.
Yeah.
And I think the garden was Atlantis.
Okay.
And we were just us. Aliens are us on humans, but on a higher conscious level and a little more developed. And probably seeing in other dimensions, because the higher consciousness you get, the more dimensions you'll be able to see in,
right,
than the 4 dimensions that we see in. So they were the Anunnaki, and they lived in Atlantis, and there was a percentage of them, of the population, because of them, they were really conscious and they were really awoke, and there was a percentage that wasn't. Mm-hmm. And supposedly we reached a consciousness that we got to get back to. But all right, if those Anunnaki came here, and even what's his name, Nikola Tesla, that guy talked about another planet being in our solar system that we can't see, another dimension that we can't see that's affecting us, probably where the Anunnaki are. And not only that, the Sumerians, they had our solar system perfectly depicted in their tablets with an extra planet. Yeah. Probably that extra planet that Nikola Tesla was
talking about. NASA hiding that planet because they know that it...
Nibiru, whatever it is.
Planet X, Nibiru.
Planet X.
Maybe they're not showing us that planet because they know that there's life there.
It's another dimensional thing.
Right.
It's...
Maybe we can get into a whole episode of that shit.
Yeah, the same thing with Mars. Mars used to be in the habitable zone.
Habitable zone.
Mars also, on the surface of Mars, there's detection of high radiation blasts like that. On Earth, you can only duplicate that with like an atomic bomb. So it appears that an atomic bomb went off on the surface of Mars, and I don't think Mars ever had a strong enough magnetic field. But I think it might have had an artificial one at one time. And I think there might have been some proof of that, because a lot of the surface of Mars, which they won't show you this in NASA photos and the rover photos, was, I think, glass or some kind of something that held a magnetic charge.
Okay. Well, there was water on Mars. They proved that, right?
Right now, we could probably still terraform Mars.
Yeah.
All we have to do is build an artificial magnetic field around Mars.
There's
water on Mars. All right, what a lot of people don't know is there's water on the moon. There's ice on the moon.
Right.
There's not water, not liquid form.
Water.
There's ice on the moon. Tons and tons of ice on the moon.
And water is like the base of life.
That's not common information that they want you to know. It is.
Right. It's like water is the beginning of life, right?
Absolutely. So, I mean, the crazy stuff we could talk about, we can go on with it all day. The
Yeah.
flat Earth, I don't really believe in it. I have a gentleman that I do want to come on and discuss it with him.
For
He
sure.
had some very good facts I want to talk about, but to me, it's like, if you want me to think the Earth is flat, you have to prove to me why all other visible planets are round and the Earth is flat.
Right.
If you can prove to me that without me having to question why,
Yeah.
then I'll believe.
I don't
you,
want to get
but
too much into it. I could say some things, but
You don't want to give away an episode.
I don't want to give away an episode, and I don't want to discourage someone maybe who would believe in flat Earth to be like, I'm not gonna listen to that. But yeah,
We definitely want y'all to listen because
Yeah.
we're gonna have it. We're gonna have a gentleman on that's been on 2 shows in the UK, and he's legit. He's done over 30 years of research, and I'm not sure if he believes in the whole non-gravity, the whole no satellites in space, because a lot of
Right.
flat earthers believe no gravity.
Well, that's what
they
I was.
believe no satellites in space.
That's what I was gonna get
everything's
into.
off of
They think that
cell towers.
there's a firmament, and that the moon is fake, and that the sun is fake, and they question why is the sun pretty much the same
But
size
on
as the
their
moon
behalf,
and
the
things.
Bible does mention a firmament.
It
a few
does.
times.
It does. But that
But
could,
I think in that,
I think they
translated into
knew
Hebrew,
what
I know. I think translated into Hebrew, it means something else. It's different. I'm not
Something
sure.
else.
I gotta look it up. And once I do,
Oh.
I'll let y'all know next episode what it
Yeah.
means. But I think translation from Hebrew into English, I think that word might mean something else.
Right.
But I think it might mean sphere, like the Earth is a
Sphere.
sphere. Yeah, sphere. Or
Could be.
sphere.
It's hard to. It's
Sphere.
hard. It's
It's
hard.
a sphere.
It's a sphere. It's hard to tell, especially when there's fucking mistranslation and things like that, where you're not 100% sure on what it actually was.
Mistranslation and misinformation because they want you to think it means something else. But yeah, I think like I was saying, I think the whole Genesis, the whole Garden of Eden was Atlantis, and I think Cain and Abel and all them were they were the Sumerians.
Yep.
And I don't think per se the apple was a fruit. I think the apple was human vagina,
Mm-hmm.
and I think the Sumerians fucked a chick that they wasn't supposed to fuck because they were less conscious,
Yeah.
conscious awake,
Yeah.
and that's what kept lowering our conscious level, things of that. And
So dumb to
listen,
sound.
not all human DNA can be tracked back to Earth. There's like a percentage of human DNA that's not found on Earth.
Yeah.
It's legit. You can look
The-
it up.
yeah.
And not only that, there's a human percentage of all of us that has like 2 to 3% Neanderthal DNA in us.
Tell me why the
Ex-
Rothschilds have a fucking like R negative, some blood type that nobody else in the fucking planet has.
Yeah, because
They know some shit. They're fucking inbred.
They're fucking inbred, reproduced homos that they were probably Alexander fucking his. They came from back when Alexander the Great was fucking his little
So
serpents and
let's
his
just say
boys and shit.
they keep it in the family. What do you?
To say the least. But I mean, they fuck with DNA. They fuck with shit like that, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of bloodlines, a lot of shit that people are like Bush and Obama's related. They're
Right.
like 6 cousins, twice removed. Bush is like related to the Queen and shit. Like some 12-year-old girl figured this shit out or something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. That well, all but one president were all related to King James the Third, I think it was, or it was one of those kings. Every single president that's been in the United States, except for one, all had a bloodline relative.
Listen, so they talk about the Matrix. They talk about they're trying to globally enslave us and globally do this. Nah, all that shit is probably a cover up for how they already have us right now, right? Listen, there's 24 hours in a day. Most people spend 8 to 10 hours working, right?
Yeah.
10 hours out of 24. 10 minus 24, that's 14. All right? Then you commute to work back and forth depending on what time. Let's just say that's 2 hours. All right? Now, that gives you 12 hours. And then what you got to sleep. The human body usually has to sleep 8 hours a day, like they say, right?
Yeah.
That gives you, 3 to 4 hours to do what you want?
To do what you need.
What you
do
want
what you
to do.
want.
No, what you want to do. And then most of the time that you're spending those 4 hours paying bills, running around doing
Doing-
errands and things to survive. Listen, if you
Your
don't
home
pay, if
shit.
you don't pay water bill, you don't get water. You don't
Yeah.
survive. You die. This is
Sure.
how they got it. This is how they got it structured. The government is farming humans. They've been farming people since the fucking Egyptian times. When they were slaves, there wasn't slaves. There were slaves. But if you think about it, you can't control a person's mind. So if you can't control a person physically because you can't control their mind, then what you gonna do? That's why they said the pyramids weren't built by slaves, because you can't control them. That it was arts and crafts.
Built by people doing their 9 to 5.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This is a better way to slave them. Let's give them.
Here's
them gifts. Let's give
food.
them money. Let's give them more women and more things that they need to get this job done. Because, you know why? They work more perfectively that way.
Yeah.
And this is the same method that they use today.
Yeah.
10,000 years later,
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
We'll give you water.
Wait the
we'll
fuck
give you
up.
we'll give you we'll give you water, we'll give you food, we'll give you, shelter, but you got to work for it. This shit ain't free.
I mean, you got to work for it, and you got to spend so much time and so much effort working for it that you don't have time to think about what life is really means, what life is really about, and you can't become a Nikola Tesla or any great thinker like that anymore.
A free
because
thinker?
you don't have enough time. They put
Yeah.
too much. You think what they say? You think Beethoven had a fucking Game Boy? You think Mozart had a fucking PS3? Nah.
No.
They became great because they ain't have the bullshit in front of them.
Yeah.
Astronomers, all that shit. The Mayans, you think they predicted this shit? Because they didn't. They had time. They
Yeah.
watched the stars for thousands of years.
That was kind of their full-time job, is doing those things.
And what do you think? You think we're here to do what we're here? You think we're on Earth to do what we're doing right now? Pay bills, live paycheck to paycheck, die? That's not what we're here for.
No.
We're not here to act like this. We're not here to think like this. We're here to become more consciously aware. We have a third eye. It's called the pineal gland, right?
Yep.
Thousands of years ago, it was the size of our eyeball. Right now, it's the size of a raisin.
Right.
That's because we're consciously more asleep than we were. And we got to get it back to the size of a grape, to the size of our eye, where it's supposed to be. And information like this and baby steps, that's how you start.
For sure. What are some other things that we're going to talk about on this show?
We want to talk about everything. You already know. From the way the conversation is going, we're going to talk about...
I guess that did give you a pretty good glimpse about what we're about.
We're going to talk about NASA. We're going to talk about SpaceX. Elon Musk. Got to talk about that guy.
Yep.
We're going to talk about the Federal Reserve. We're going to talk about the royal family. We're going to talk about Diana, Princess Diana, for those that are a little bit younger.
Yep.
We're going to talk about Princess Diana for sure. We're going to talk about the fractional banking system. We're going to talk about secret societies. We're going to talk about Tupac and his death. There was a lot of numerology surrounding his death. A lot of people still think he faked his death.
Yeah.
So
And hip-hop in general, too. There's a lot of...
Hip-hop, the culture, the revolution, everything about it. The evolution about it.
Yeah.
We're also going to talk about Mars. We want to discuss Mars. We want to discuss hollow Earth theory, hollow Moon theory,
Flat Earth.
for sure. I love that's
let's
my
discuss
favorite
it.
one, Flat Earth. I don't put none of them down, but my favorite people that I like talking to is the
Yeah.
Flat Earth theorists. And the real ones, they don't like it when you call them theorists. So
Right.
they think you can't prove the Earth is round. I think you can. For instance, if you have a friend that lives in another state, another country, you can go out and measure shadows. All right, not only that, this is even better. Because a lot of flat earthers think the flat earth ends in Antarctica, the ice wall.
Right.
You can take trips to Antarctica. You can take cruises. You can take all kinds of cruises to Antarctica and go on excavations and all that shit over there. You literally can. They'll argue that, they're not really taking you to Antarctica. They're taking you to Greenland or whatever.
You probably can't just go to where their one fucking base is that they have, but I'm sure if you was like, hey, you have a way to Antarctica, fucking feel free. No one claims that shit. Nobody claims Antarctica.
So they argue that there's no gravity, these flat earthers. But if there's no gravity, why do bubbles go up underwater?
Right.
They'll be like, the pressure. All right, it's the gravity that's pressuring the water down bring. Bubbles are gas. Air is gas.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is like how flat is it really? What's underneath? If you keep digging,
listen,
if you keep digging, are you just gonna fucking fall into space?
Come out in Japan.
Well, no. Are you gonna
listen? Hey, I think this might be a fact. It's a theory that I heard. I didn't look too much looking into it. I need to, but it might be a fact. So somebody look it up. If y'all do, let me know. But it's a theory that the Bermuda Triangle is a vortex, and when you calculate it going straight through the earth and coming out the other side, it comes out in a Japanese triangle, Bermuda Triangle type deal over there. Japanese circle of death.
So if you went from one point to another,
it's like supposedly it's some, and that's another episode too.
Yeah.
Probably the Bermuda Triangle, and it's a lot of interesting things. Get into some conspiracy theories like the Mandela effect.
For sure, yeah.
I like
that
to
shit's fun to talk about.
I like to talk about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm hard to convince, so
right.
I need some convincing.
For sure.
And then we'll talk about some factual stuff. We'll talk about
this
Kennedy's
episode was
assassination.
Straight facts. We will talk about conspiracy theories and stuff. This was just one that we were both looking into that we felt would be
What is a fact that Kennedy's brother Rob was assassinated, and by a gentleman named Sirhan, and
that shit's
guy,
crazy.
That guy was the perfect
We
candidate.
didn't even talk about that
for a MK Ultra program.
Yep.
So he might have been Sirhan might have been the MK Ultra sleeper agent Manchurian candidate that they were trying to create. Have
the
somebody carry out a crime.
Yeah.
Say a code word. They carry out an assassination, and without them knowing that they were doing it or programmed to doing it. Sirhan said the last thing he remembered was seeing a woman in a polka dotted dress, and then the next thing he remembered was being choked out after Rob Kennedy was shot. And the medical examiners from the defense and the prosecution both looked at him and said his amnesia was legit.
Yeah.
It is a proven fact that 10% of the world's population is highly hypnotosable or whatever, and he falls into that category that's highly hypnotosable or whatever. So the CIA did their research. They found these people that they know they can hypnotize easy, and I think Sirhan was a fucking Manchurian candidate for the CIA.
Well, they think so the woman in the polka dot dress
just
is
like
pretty.
Jack Ruby that killed fucking Oswald.
Well,
and Oswald was just a fall guy.
The woman in the polka dot dress, they believe there's triggers from people who are at MK Ultra that clowns is one. Maybe this lady was his trigger. Even just this woman in this polka dot dress saying a certain word to him made him carry out his assassination.
Yeah, a code phrase like the moon is clear. So I'm having coffee with you. I say the moon is clear.
Right, but they were saying what I'm saying is it's not just words; it's images too. So like an image of, like I said, like a clown. That it's like a trigger.
But how would you trigger it? How would you show them an image? How would you trigger an image with them though? As you're sitting,
maybe it's a
he
certain
said he
thing.
remembered. This is his last.
Maybe it's
image.
two triggers: an image of something and a word.
Right.
So
But
her
his
polka
last
dot
image-
dress plus what she's saying, maybe. That's what I'm
because the
saying.
last thing he remembers was a polka
dot dress.
Listen,
and talking to some woman.
Polka dots and a pattern like that are highly hypnosis.
Yeah, hypnosis, exactly.
So polka dot dress was the last thing he remembers seeing, and then he knew she was attractive though. He said she was attractive.
Right. Well,
so I'm a male.
You get
natural instinct.
get a
We're
woman
gonna
to go and
remember
talk
if she's
to him,
attractive.
and all she's got to say.
He said he was having coffee with her too. So yeah.
So she probably walked up to him, and he was like, okay.
She was like a handler, some type of handler that was.
They had to think of a way to get him in that building that day, though.
Excuse me. This is one of the things that they tried to say the projects didn't work out because they were saying it was too out of their control. They said the CIA wouldn't be able to control the product, the gentleman, whoever's under hypnosis, out of the field.
Right.
And then they would need somebody else to step in and say the code phrase and da-da-da.
Yeah.
They wouldn't. It would be out of his control. Da-da, so. But who the fuck
Okay,
don't
so-
believe what the fuck they say, right?
Sure,
Don't believe
sure.
what the fuck they say.
Sure.
So
I get what you're saying though, that they couldn't really release it because it just still wasn't predictable, that things still could go wrong and things like that. So yeah, you could be trained to do this at this code word, but maybe that shit only works once. So, I don't know. You release someone into a thing
all
to
right,
do a.
listen. All right. Now, to back up what we were saying, and y'all can look this up. We always urge y'all to look it up, do some research, right? Now, to back up what we were saying about Sirhan, he was tried for the murder of Rob Kennedy.
Right.
And his defense team argued, this is public record and domain, look it up. His defense team argued that he involuntarily slipped into a hypnosis trance and killed Rob Kennedy.
Right.
That he didn't know he was doing it.
Yeah.
Now, the prosecutor and the defenders, both of their doctors said his amnesia was real, that he really didn't remember doing it.
Look at the images
he
of
was the
him.
number one candidate to be.
Look at the images of
hypnotized.
that guy on the day that happened,
He
and you
looked
can
shook.
just fucking
You can tell he don't know what was going
just
on.
blank slate.
Yeah,
Like
for
no
sure.
one at the wheel.
Erased, everything gone. He did what he was
Done.
supposed to do.
Done. Yeah.
And imagine, all right, there's a few people, couple dozen people that actually got these lawsuits off about Mkultra,
Right.
their programs on the Canadian and American governments, and they won money. But imagine the thousands and thousands of other people, maybe like Sirhan, because what the fuck is Sirhan anyway? And
Maybe
what does
they
that
were in a
even
deeper-
mean? Does it mean something in another language? I'm gonna have to look that shit up.
Sirhan.
Yeah, what does that even mean? So,
Yeah.
First
It's a
name,
strange
his
name.
first name
Yeah,
and
it's
last
strange.
name is the same.
It's strange.
Sirhan.
Well, just like,
Sirhan.
Right. The guy who killed one of the Beatles, I forgot. What's his name? Lennon, right? So the guy who killed Lennon, I forgot his name too.
He was a fucking.
Well, listen.
He sat there and read a book until the
Read a
cops
book-
came.
right.
Right?
Who
Are
does
you
that?
Fucking kidding me?
Who does that?
All right, now, hey, if you want to read a book, Behold the Pale Horse, William Cooper. This guy predicted 9/11 6 months before it happened, and then 2 months after 9/11, he was shot dead by the police.
Shit's crazy.
He was a Army, Navy intelligent officer.
They don't want the truth out.
He has the credentials, and he leaked a lot of information.
They don't want that truth out.
Nah. And yeah, this guy was taken
Perfect
out,
example
and
of that.
That's some good information to look up, William Cooper, and he talks about a lot of the subjects that we're going to be touching.
Yeah.
And we want to...
He was kind of a pioneer in
For sure. He was one of the...
in things like that, like talking about it, bringing it to the light, and getting the public involved. And
He actually woke up Japan. He said he wanted to wake up a nation. Listen, we're saying level 1 woke. It's 2019. We're saying level 1 woke. And we want to wake up, and people been waking up for a few years now.
Yeah.
This guy was talking about being woke in the 80s.
80s. He's
he was
an
trying to wake
OG.
people up in the 80s.
He's an OG.
And he said he woke up Japan. He woke up a nation, but it was the wrong one. He woke up Japan because he showed raw footage of the Kennedy assassination where the driver turned around and shot Kennedy from the front
I've heard
seat
that too.
with a special gun. It wasn't a regular gun, so it wasn't a loud shot. It was like a air rifle, a CO2 or some kind of air rifle, little handgun that shot an exploding dart that had shellfish, like poisonous shellfish on it.
Yeah.
Listen, and then they took it to Congress, and they brought the gun in front of Congress and said, yes, this gun can shoot darts with poisonous shellfish out of it.
Yeah.
The CIA, I swear to God, you can look this up. It's public domain. It's video. You can look it up. And they brought it to Congress. And Bill Cooper was like, y'all thought I was crazy 5 years ago when I said it, but look what's on Congress now.
Right.
And see the dude turn around.
Man, I can't wait for them files to come out.
Yeah.
I can't wait
Thank
for the
God
files to come out.
Thank God Bush died because fuck that.
Yeah.
reptilian motherfucker.
Yeah.
I don't really believe he's a reptilian. I got to do a little bit more research before I'm persuaded about that reptilia.
I'm not in that.
We all do have
lizard people.
We all do have a small brain inside of us that's called like the reptilica or some shit like that, or reptilia or some shit like that.
Could be something to it. It could be something to
that
it.
nature.
But the guy who came up with that whole reptilian shit is kind of a fucking kook. So I don't.
You think we came from what? Monkeys? Chimpanzees is our closest. And they're fucking brutal. I mean, we go to war, so do they, though.
It's a little more believable
brutal.
than a fucking iguana.
I mean, before it was like hominoids. What was it? It was the first thing they found was like Lucy was the first monkey that they found that walked upright. It was like 6 million years ago.
Yeah.
And they called her Homo erectus.
Yep.
Homo human rectus means upright, so walked upright. She was the first monkey.
I believe that.
The first oldest monkey that they found that walked upright.
I don't believe a lot of the timelines, but I believe that.
Yeah, and not only that, she walked upright for a reason. They were saying the vegetation in Africa was spreading out at the time, so the herds had to walk further to get to food and shit like that. And not only that, they were saying our ancestors, or what they were trying to say are our ancestors, these chimpanzees, they're saying that they followed herds of other animals out of there. Which makes sense because they say a lot of our social and a lot of our, like when people first started using sounds, they say they got that from animals and observing animals and stuff. So we followed animals. Africa started spreading apart. The vegetation started spreading apart. We followed animals out of there. And this is called like a Stone 8 theory, basically. It's a gentleman that theorized this. We followed the animals out of Africa. And they would shit, and after they would shit, they would leave mushrooms.
Eat the mushrooms. Yeah.
So the people would eat these mushrooms from under the cow dung.
Well, the monkeys
and they were doing is they were microdosing on these hallucinogen mushrooms that were
were expanding their minds.
It's kind of like what LSD. It's kind of like what CIA and the MK Ultra did to LSD in the 60s with the whole counter-conscious movement.
Well, microdosing...
They made them more aware, and they kind of like... They
started to figure shit out. Fire,
and
tools,
and they advanced them in socialism. Because around that time, the brain capacity of those primates or whatever they were started developing and getting bigger and things like that. But the thing is what's crazy is like up to like 3,000 years, 50,000 years ago, we had 3 different species of humans developing on the earth. Like we are modern humans. It was like Neanderthals and like some of like
Neanderthals
and dwarf humans or some shit. Like do some research on all this shit. Like people, you're so occupied with your jobs. And you're so occupied probably with Cardi B or the Kardashians or whoever's going to drop the next song or the next video, the next best movie or whatever it is. You're so occupied with what's relevant and what's going on for the minute that you don't really get time to question and look into things like that. And that's all we're going to talk about on this podcast.
Yeah, look into the past because it's going to give you a good clue about what's going to happen in the future.
For sure. We'll mix it into relevant shit because it always all ties into relevant shit. It has everything to do with relevancy or else it wouldn't be around. Like we wouldn't have nothing to talk about. So
for sure.
But yeah, sick fucks, man. MK Ultra. Sick fucks. You gotta do your own research on it. You gotta look it up. It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, we can't even cover everything in our.
But yeah, I mean, we came at it that we didn't intend to. We want
for sure.
It's like 60-40. This is how we always want it for all our viewers to be, or whoever's gonna watch it. 60-40. We'll give you 60 of the information. We want you to go get the other 40.
Other 40, yeah, because there's a ton of it out there.
Smartphones are making everybody lazy. All the new technology.
Well, fuck, you got a smartphone in your fucking hand. Look some of this shit up.
Yeah, use it for your advantage while you can.
Quit playing Candy Crush and look some shit up.
Right? Y'all still playing Candy Crush? What level y'all on? What y'all playing now?
Yeah, what's that new shit?
But yeah, so we just wanted to touch some serious things for the night that we came up with and that we researched and we've been looking into. And
more episodes coming soon.
For sure. Just trying to cover what's already out there.
Yeah.
Trying to put it all in one spot so you can get it all in one place and try to make it a little bit more entertaining for y'all as we go along. It's our first episode, so welcome, and
For sure.
come along for the ride.
Yeah. See y'all.